Welcome to the Practicing Drummer podcast. My name is Craig, and in this episode, I've got a conversation with Ron Tierno from June of 2025. This one's a little bit different. Ron's not an active player on the jazz scene, and he wasn't on my radar at all until a couple of months ago when I heard about a book that he wrote. In my interview with Hank Allen-Barfield, he mentioned that he worked out of Ron's book, The Melodic Snare Drummer, during his time at Juilliard when he was studying with Billy Drummond. I'd never even heard of the book before, but since it had the Billy Drummond stamp of approval, I ordered it immediately. It's pretty unique and a lot of fun to work out of, so I thought it'd be cool to have Ron on the show to talk about it. When I started doing some research, I realized that Ron had a really cool career. He's been based in New York, recording and doing Broadway shows, most notably for the first national tour of Cats, and then a long run with that production on Broadway. Lately, Ron is staying busy teaching out of the Good Hands Drum Shop in Manhattan. He still does some freelance gigging and has played the holiday concerts with the Boston Pops for about the last 10 years, but at this stage of his career, he mostly considers himself a teacher and a Broadway veteran. I also discovered that Ron has a couple of new books that just came out, so we talk about those in addition to The Melodic Snare Drummer. I'll of course link to everything in the show notes and on the blog at practicingdrummer.com, and with that, let's get right into it with Ron Tierno. Oh, hey, Ron. Thanks so much for doing this.
My pleasure. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, thanks. You were somebody that wasn't on my radar until very recently. I interviewed a young drummer in New York. You might know him, Hank Allen-Barfield.
I may have met him coming through the shop, but...
Yeah, well, he's very young. He just graduated Juilliard and playing a lot on the scene in New York. You should check him out if you can. But anyway, I was interviewing him, and everybody that listens to this podcast knows I'm obsessed with Billy Drummond. And as soon as I heard that Billy Drummond used your book as part of his teaching at Juilliard, I had to talk to you. So
cool.
That's the setup for why this is happening. And let's get into it with kind of setting up your history with the drums. A lot of it was covered on the Broadway 101 or Broadway Drumming 101 podcast. So we don't need to go super deep, but can you just give me an overview of your young life with the drums and getting into it?
So I think where you come from influences how even the kinds of things you listen to. But I came from Binghamton, New York, which is a small city upstate. It's about 3 hours driving time from the city, but totally out of the sphere of influence of the city too. So I felt like I came from a small town in that sense. And I started playing when I was 9 years old.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I had an excellent teacher who introduced me to a lot of different styles, and I knew I wanted to become a professional fairly young. And one of the benefits of being close to New York was it was fairly easy to come here in that Mecca, the drive you do when you're young to become successful, and you got to leave the small town, the nest, so to speak. So it was fairly easy because I knew if it didn't work out, I'm a inexpensive bus ticket to get back to Binghamton if I had to. I was lucky enough that didn't happen. So I just charged ahead, and that's the start. And as far as drumming, so like I said, I started playing when I was 9. I remember I had to give up my paper route because I was playing gigs every weekend, so it was too hard to get up early to do the deliver the Saturday and Sunday morning papers.
How old were you when you started gigging?
Well, back in those days, before DJs, really, bands would play at all the high school dances, and there was a high school dance every weekend, and all the high schools and the schools had it. And again, I'm from the baby boom generation, so there were just a ton of kids growing up, and also, again, remember, I was born in 1952, so in 1962, I was 10 years old at the beginning of, that's when the Beatles album or the first singles were released. And so the mid 60s is really when I'm coming into that age of just, Buddy Rich influence and Joe Morello, and then the Beatles and the British Invasion, and then the R&B. And so I had all this influence, and it was really a terrific start.
Oh yeah. What a fun time.
Yes.
So were you seeing a lot of these players since you were so close to New York?
Well, yes, because there was still Buddy Rich's big band, which he formed in the mid-'60s when he had those first couple of great albums on I think it was called World Pacific, Buddy Rich Big Band, and then Big Swing Face.
Yeah.
Those are my favorites because they had the West Side Story medley and the Channel One suite So anyway, whenever he would do a tour, which he was always on the road, he was noted for that. Of course, Binghamton is the first stop on the way to Syracuse, Rochester, and points west. So he would come through quite often. So I'd see him a lot.
Oh, nice.
Joe Morello was, now this would be sort of my brother's era. He was a little older. I inherited all his records, and he was into Dave Brubeck. So
cool.
One of my first great records that I enjoyed was Time Out, of course.
Yeah.
And it turns out Joe Morello, who was from suburban New Jersey, came up to Binghamton quite frequently. So he did a clinic at my teacher's studio, just sort of a small, like with, 30, 40, 50 people. And this was still, he was in the heart of his Dave Brubeck era too. So that was a real treat to see him when I was very young.
Do you remember anything from that clinic?
The fact that he, again, very small setup. We're literally nose to nose, in a small studio.
Yeah.
And the fact that he would be, while he was soloing, he would keep his figures going while he's pushing his glasses up with his other hand. So if he was playing some sort of fast 16th note thing, he would go into his finger stroke while he's adjusting his glasses. So as a young kid, that was like, wow, everyone, that was pretty amazing. And meanwhile, of course, all his playing was off the charts. But for a kid, something like that sticks in your head.
Oh, sure. And what about seeing Buddy? Did you ever get to meet him or have a clinic experience like that?
No, I didn't. No, I did. I actually sort of did get backstage he was playing at the community college. So they put him in the men's locker room, and somehow I was able to wander through there. So I heard him talking to some other people, but I think I was by myself, and I was pretty shy, so I didn't actually, go up to him. But
sure.
You like to eavesdrop sometimes. You pick up more that way than asking the silly question that, you're like, your tongue is tied and you don't know what to say. So
yeah, right.
But he was just, like I said, I saw him a number of times. So there were sometimes indoors, sometimes he played at a football field in Scranton, and I think the tickets were $1.
Oh wow!
And you sat in the high school bleachers, on the side of the football field, and they built a stage on the football field for his big band. And then another time was a fairly small club that had a large dance floor. And now, of course, everyone doesn't know Buddy Rich's background and his reputation. And the dance floor, they sort of left it open. They didn't put chairs on it. So sure enough, during one tune that was fairly stable and not a big drum solo, a couple starts getting up and starts dancing.
Oh, wow.
Which, of course, drove Buddy nuts. And so I remember that one too as well. He made him sit down.
Oh, funny. And did I hear that you saw Krupa live a bit as well?
I did one. Yes, I did. And again, when you're very young, the memories are, how clear are they? And I can almost piece things together now because ironically, I saw him at a jazz club in New York called the Metropole.
Oh, okay.
Which is still there. It's now a gentleman's club, but I think it always was because I remember my father took me in there. I must have been 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. So we're talking mid-60s. And I wasn't out late at night. I couldn't go into a bar, obviously, with my father, but he wanted me to see Gene Krupa. So I must have been taking lessons at that point. So the thing I remember, small club, it was odd to me that the band was in a straight line behind the bar, very high, with mirrors behind them.
Oh,
so
wow.
Now in looking back, I realized, well, this was a dance club, and it was probably, even go-go dancing was sort of a big thing at that time.
Ah, sure.
And the Metropole was about drawing in people off the street. So it was like those kinds of clubs in New York, a lot of them, even Birdland and the jazz clubs on 52nd Street, had hawkers out in the front that would try to draw you in. So a lot of this music would start early. I remember that we went fairly early in the day. It wasn't 10 at night. It was probably 5 in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
And looking back years later, he was there for many years, and they played from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And alternated with it was a band called the Astronauts who were wearing Beatle suits. I sort of remember that. So again, this must have been mid-60s, and all the other bands were trying to do that kind of a thing. But I would say that he was older. He didn't look healthy, and I wasn't, overly impressed with what he was doing. And it was a small club, so it was I was expecting flashiness. I was expecting his showy era,
Yeah, right.
Anyway, but maybe we'll talk about this later with my books. As you look back on what he did, and of course what he did with bringing the drums to the forefront, that is still something that stands out. And then he still, when I walked in that room, I remember that face. You know what I mean? He was a very handsome guy, had a great smile, big head of hair. And then when he was younger, if you watch the Gene Krupa story, I think that was Sal Mineo that played him in that movie, right? I'm not sure, but anyway, he was known for his flashiness and waving his hair around and everything. So, of course, a lot of musicians felt that was, he's being too showy and it's not musical enough. But his service to me of the musical history is bringing drums to the forefront, and making drums known to the audience to appreciate what drummers do.
Yeah, and you said your dad took you to see him and presumably many other shows. Was your dad a musician too, or?
No, he was not. And no, he was not very musical, but I think someone bought me a set of bongos for Christmas one year, and I seemed to like them.
Yeah.
And we grew up near a drummer who was teaching named Tony Montfort.
Oh, okay.
So I started studying with him, and it just sort of rolled along like that. So my father encouraged me in my music. So which was great because I know a lot of people, they said my parents didn't, especially when it came to drums, because it can be a loud instrument.
Yeah.
But no, he was very supportive throughout my career.
Oh, that's great. Can you tell me a little bit about your early drum lessons, and can we talk a little bit about your time studying with Tony and then later Sam Ulano? And then I want to get to something else. You mentioned something pretty exciting that another teacher I want to ask you about.
All right. So as I was just saying, that Tony, I didn't know who he was, and I'm a young kid. And my parents, his family grew up down the street from me. So my family knew him because he and his brother and his father played, and there was always music in his house. And so it was like, geez, this guy's teaching. I bet he'd be a good teacher. And he's obviously very musical and everything. And he turned out to be a great teacher. I would say from a drumming standpoint, he was in the Philly Joe Jones kind of school of playing. So he was in that, the modern drumming of the time. Was a friend with Joe Morello, so that's how he brought Joe Morello in for a clinic.
Okay.
And he taught in a very structured way, where he didn't just. First of all, my first lesson we had. Again, I'm 9 years old. He gives me a pair of sticks and a set of brushes, and we learned a brush beat.
Oh wow!
And the jazz cymbal ride. I didn't say I wanted to be a jazz drummer, but that was foundational to him.
Yes.
So that was the first thing we played that. And then reading was simultaneous, rhythmic analysis so that I could really understand and how to break down how to read a rhythm and count it out and everything. He had a very structured way of presenting that.
Nice.
And then we went through a series of books. Now, his teacher in New York was Sam Ulano when he was there. So on one of my trips with my dad, we went to visit Sam Ulano, who had a place on 42nd Street at the time. He moved around a lot, but he wrote a lot of books. That was what he was known for.
Yeah.
Again, Tony studied with him. So there was my introduction. So I met him, and then, of course, years later, I moved to New York, and I looked him up to study with him. So now Sam's thing was really book reading. He didn't even have a set of drums in his studio. He had these 2 giant rubber pads that he built himself, because we used metal sticks on them. He was very big on building your wrist strength. So I played with these pipes. So there could be controversy about that, and I get that, because you could, literally become muscle bound and try to overpower the drums. It certainly is the opposite of the impression I got of meeting Joe Morello. He had such soft hands, and even when you spoke to him, and we did a meet and greet at the drum shop. Right before he passed, actually. And so there was a line of drummers coming up and meeting him. And I brought my copy of Time Out and asked him to sign it. And he was very tactile, because by this time he's really blind. So
right.
When he's talking and he's holding a pair of sticks in his hand and he's caressing them, and he's sort of, everything is very soft. And then he took the record and he's all massaging it. And I felt like everything he did was like playing the brushes on the snare drum, very fluid and smooth. And then when you think of his playing and you look back on his playing, you get that feeling in the way he played,
Yeah.
So I got a little off topic there, but
no, that's great. And just to touch back on your time with Sam for a bit, and you said he was very heavy on reading as his way of teaching.
Okay, so for example, the first lesson I come and he said, well, bring all your books. And I'm going, oh, well, Sam, geez, I have like 15 or 20. Bring them all. So his lessons were, we would go through a page in every book that I had.
Oh, wow.
On the pad. So if it's a drum set book, you would just play your feet on the floor and, because he didn't, like I said, at this time, I think he had drums earlier in his teaching, but by this time he wasn't using it. And you're supposed to do that at home. He felt that the lesson, show me you can read it, show me you got the independence, and then you go on to the next page.
Yeah.
But he was also big on, you don't have any books on this thing. You don't have any books on this. You don't have any books on that. And he either had one or he would recommend one. He didn't just use his books. He used everything. And so by the time I finished with him, I studied with him for loosely for 4 or 5 years, shortly after I'd come to New York. By the end, I was up to 120 books. And the way we would program that is I would do 20 books per lesson. So I had to practice 20 pages during the week.
Wow.
And the following week, I would bring the group B packet of 20 books.
Oh my gosh.
Practice those. So literally, it was a total immersion in reading of all styles and meters and whatever it was. So what I didn't get, though, was technique on the drums, other important aspects of drumming. So it was limiting in that sense. But you take what you get from various teachers. Everyone's not going to teach the same way.
Yeah, right.
Nor give you everything. So it was, at the time, that's what I needed, and it worked great.
And then in addition to that, were you playing along with records, or did he have you doing anything more directly connected to musical playing, or was it just all books?
Not so much. I got more of that with Tony when I was younger. There were play-along books. One was called Sittin' In.
Oh, yeah.
It was written by Andy Leleno, and then there was a Jim Chapin play-along book, too. It was pretty detailed, but that was also a good one. That was very intense. I think that was called Different Drummers, something like that.
Yeah, I'll put a link to that in the show notes. I'll look it up. I haven't thought about that book in a long time.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still out, but it came in a very large manual, and it had the suggested playing. In other words, it had the fills written out, and there was, you're accompanying a band, it's actual track, and then it had the way we'd like to see it, which is more slashes and where the figures you had to set up were, but you at least had a reference to go by.
Right.
And this was with vinyl, of course.
Oh, yeah, right. Now, there was something else I saw in your bio that I have to ask about. It says that you studied or took at least one lesson with Bernard Purdie.
Yes.
How did that come up? And tell me as much as you want to about that.
Okay, all right. So first of all, I was given the address. I called him, and I don't know how I heard he was teaching, but I was able to get his number fairly easily, I think. So he gives me the address. Turns out it's the address of Atlantic Records.
Oh, wow.
Which was on near Columbus Circle. That's where they were at the time.
Okay.
And so it was one of the recording studios, because I think I later did a session there, but he was in a room off to the side. So they gave him like a back room, probably because he was there so much.
Sure.
Tom Dowd is still around, and Ahmet, all those guys who they used him all the time for a lot of those records. So that's where he taught. It was not, he was a player. So he was not set up in a teaching method. He didn't have a specific thing. I would have liked to ask him questions like, how did you play this on this record? And how did you do that?
Yeah.
He did have a set of drums. And the thing I remember about that was he had me play to a Haskell Hardbook. So Haskell Hardbook is just like I'm marching in early elementary style, boom, check, boom, da, 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 boom, check. Just a 2/4 simple marching book. So I'm way beyond that at this point, but he wanted me to play that and put it in a rock interpretation, meaning put a hi-hat or a cymbal right on top of it while I'm reading the figure. So again, that's pretty progressive for the time. Now there are books that do all sorts of things with it, but maybe he found, well, this is an easy book to read, so I'll have you play time on top of it. And then, of course, he's getting busy, so I'd come to a lesson, and he'd have a sub covering for him. So, and that was okay because I got things from him too. He was a younger guy. I don't even remember his name because it's only happened a couple times. And so that wasn't going to work on a long-term basis. But I got to meet him. And then subsequent times when I would see him, he's just a great personality.
Oh yeah,
and certainly his playing, and also at the time he wasn't promoting his name through videos. I don't think anybody did at the time. Although at his recording sessions, he did have a big sign that said, "Your session is being played by Bernard Pretty Purdy." I thought that was pretty cool. I never saw it, but I heard about it.
Right.
I'm certain he'll fess up to that. Just like I've done gigs with singers who did albums that Hal Blaine played on, and Hal Blaine would bring a rubber stamp and say, "This chart was recorded by Hal Blaine."
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. I think it's ways that anonymous studio players would do things to let the audience know that, hey, I'm back here and I was the one that played this chart.
Yeah.
But I thought that was very cool that, forever these charts had his rubber stamp on it.
Oh, that's great. What years or how old were you when you were going to Atlantic Records and studying with Bernard?
So that would be early 80s.
Okay, so were you were living in the city already at that point? It sounds like.
Yes. I had moved to New York in 1974.
Oh, okay.
So, and also here's now I've gotten my feet wet and I'm working and I was doing pretty good, so I could afford to take lessons with name players. Matter of fact, there were others I wish I had taken some lessons with. Mel Lewis, I know, was some friends of mine studied with him and got some good insights, and I would have liked to have done that. Joe Morello, that would have been cool. I should have done that while I had the opportunity.
Yeah.
Papa Joe Jones was still alive when I first came to New York, and I was befriended by Slam Stewart, the famous bass player from the old days, and he married a woman from Binghamton, New York, so he moved up there just before I left to come to New York. So I made sure to look him up, and I said, "Slam, I'm moving to New York in a couple of weeks. Can you give me any tips or recommendations?" And he was just such a sweetheart. He wrote me a nice letter of recommendation because he had seen me play.
Oh, nice.
With a jazz trio in Binghamton.
Oh, cool.
So he was actually very helpful. And after I'd met with him, because he wrote this letter for me, so I went to pick it up. He'd forgotten something, and he called me the next day, and he says, "Oh, I forgot this. You got to look up Joe Jones." He says he hangs out at this bar called Jim and Andy's. He'll be there every day, cocktail hour, and you should go by and say hi and tell him I sent you to see him. So I did. So this is my lesson with Joe Jones, which is, "Hello, Mr. Jones. I'm a friend of Slam Stewart's. I just moved to New York, and I was wondering if you could give me any tips or suggestions." So that led to a tirade of, "You can play anywhere you want, but you got to do it on your own. You can play in Carnegie Hall." So he was on a rant, you know what I mean? And I took it in stride, but it's the kind of thing it's hard to follow up with. So it didn't lead to an engrossing conversation and "How you doing, kid?" and he got to the point, and it's also telling me, "Look, you're going to get your own gigs. I'm not going to get you any gigs." But later I'd heard that he was teaching a little bit at the Professional Percussion Center, Frankie Ippolito's shop.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So again, that's another one I should have actually paid him and gone in and shared his experiences. But,
well, at least you got to meet him. That's cool.
Yes, it was.
You must have been seeing a lot of the great drummers during the 70s. Did you go out a lot to see, Elvin and Tony and?
Yes. Not often, because they would be special treats. I saw Tony at the Village Vanguard when he was in his sort of going into maybe the Tony Williams Lifetime era.
Right.
So he's if you've ever seen the pictures of him with the double tom yellow set that he was using. Which I've seen that picture a lot. So that's what I saw him playing.
Oh, cool.
Was that at the Vanguard? Billy Cobham, I saw. Steve Smith, when Steve Smith was opening for Billy Cobham at the Bottom Line. And it was my transition of going from, Billy Cobham is the drum god to, wow, who's this guy? Who I thought was going to be a rock drummer, and Steve Smith just with his first Vital Information band, that just blew me away.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And who else were we talking about? Each of the names you mentioned, I'd seen. Oh, Elvin.
Yeah,
So Elvin, I saw in. I saw him in Philly, and so that was a cool experience. But I wasn't into that style, because when you've got Buddy and Elvin, they played so differently.
Yeah.
Elvin sounded sloppy to me compared to Buddy's playing, and it was just because I didn't understand it.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So as I got older, I appreciated him. So again, I wish I had gone back to revisit him and study his playing more, because he really was the first of the real progressive drummers that took things in a different direction.
Yeah, right. And you're teaching now, too, and you've been teaching for quite a long time.
Yes.
Was that always a motivation for you, or was that something that sort of happened organically?
Yeah, I'd say organically, but because I studied a lot and I love to start writing my own exercises, I could pass this on. But I think when you're younger, first of all, I felt I didn't have a lot of age-related knowledge. I wasn't mature enough. I felt, you know what I mean? I could give them some notes, and I had some beginners. And I thought, well, this is all right. But I'm also an aspiring player, so I want to get out and go on the road, and I want to get gigs. So that's not the right attitude. You got to have the attitude of, I want to pass this on. And I almost feel when I'm playing, and I was fairly young, so I'm teaching guys who are my age. So I'm feeling like I'm competing with them as opposed to inspiring them. So I found the older I got, the more I enjoyed the teaching.
Right.
And I felt now I'm really ready to pass on the information. And then I had a wealth of knowledge all these years of going by. And when they would mention something, oh yeah, I've got something for that. And then I use this book for that. And, and then now I love to teach. I don't follow a specific formula. I get a lot of adult beginners, ironically.
Oh, really? Okay.
Which was not a case when I was coming up. I rarely saw adults taking drum lessons. It was always kids, and not many girls either, by the way. And now it's 50-50. And adults, in my personal teaching, I'd say more than half are adults. Many come at lunchtime from work in the neighborhood, because I teach in Midtown Manhattan.
Right.
And it's a great escape for them when it's new, when it's a new instrument. Others come because they played when they were young, and now they have a little more time and, this change of life to allow for some practice, and they're motivated because they always wanted to play.
Yeah.
So that's why they come. So it's really, I'm enjoying it a lot and teaching more and more as I progress through life here.
And you teach out of Good Hands Drum Shop in New York, right?
Correct.
How often are you there?
Now it's 5 days a week.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yes, I'm there. Like I said, I'll teach adults lunchtime, and then have a little break, and then rush hours from like 4 to 7. So then you get the kids coming after school, and then 6 o'clock, adults from work that come work till 5, so that they have to come in. So between that, I'm trying to hone it down a little bit to but I can't. Someone can only come on this day, and again, because I'm teaching more than playing, if I don't have any conflicts with gigs, it works out fine.
And gosh, what a cool place to teach.
Absolutely. Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I get to Good Hands, gosh, maybe only once every year or two, and I think about it constantly. So to go there every day must be like a dream. And you're also seeing all of the gear as it comes through the shop, and how tempting is that? Every
day something different comes in and out,
right.
And fast, I think I get tempted with the cymbals more, so I picked up a Spiz recently that just came in, and I thought, wow, I'd never had a Spiz before. I didn't know much about them, but sort of a rare treat to have one of those. So you got to be careful, because you could spend your life just collecting everything. And I'm not a huge collector, and I'm not a gearhead that I'm really into some people are really into all the vintage drums and everything. Some people are collectors, bring a set in, play it for, or buy it, play it for a while, bring it back, sell it, buy another one, or are looking for specific things. So there's those kind of collectors. There's player collectors. There's someone that's just looking for that perfect snare drum or perfect cymbal. So and in that sense, because vintage equipment is still a thing, and you just never know when things are going to turn up. You have every day is an opportunity to see something, and then the players that come through too. That's really cool too. You're probably brushing shoulders with someone famous. You don't even realize it because you didn't see their face.
Right.
But certainly name players come in all the time. It's very cool to meet them and talk in a relaxed environment.
It's such a cool place. And Jess Birch is just the best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very knowledgeable. Also a great drummer. Everybody that works there plays. But he was he took the shop over from Steve Maxwell after he was the manager at Steve's place for the first however long, that was 10 years or so. And then they worked out a deal post-pandemic where Jess just was able to take over the lease and then transferred over full ownership to Good Hands. And so he's doing well. And we outlasted Sam Ash, which is really saying something.
Yeah, no kidding.
It was ironic that they closed recently. So we probably picked up some business from that. He's also established a great online presence and then a good reputation.
Yep.
And then locally, the interesting thing was when we moved into the shop on 30th Street from the first place on 7th Avenue, when we moved in there was a scaffolding there. And it had been there for years. And it was there for the first 5 years of the shop. And now we're into year 7. I can't even keep track. But a year or so ago, the scaffolding finally came down. And all of a sudden, a new flood of walk-in traffic of people that would walk up and down the street and never notice there was a drum shop there.
Oh, yeah, right.
So it was amazing how much business that brought in, or interest of people that see, wow, a drum shop. I played drums when I was a kid, and this is a cool place.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit of, museum-esque type of people cruising through the shop.
Right.
But nonetheless, it's always a very positive, reverential kind of thing now, because you don't see, everything is so digital and online. To walk into a place like this is really a blast from the past.
Yeah, it's amazing. And speaking of drum museums, have you been to Maxwell's shop in Chicago?
No, I haven't.
Oof.
I haven't been to Chicago. I got to get there.
That is dangerous.
Is it really?
Oh yeah, it's huge, and he has so much great stuff. Yeah, it's wild.
He's such a great guy, and such a knowledgeable guy with vintage equipment, and also a great player. And so really, we have to thank him for coming to New York I'll tell you how I first found Maxwell's and how I actually started getting a room there to teach.
Oh, yeah.
Was we still had Joe Cusatis's Modern Drum Shop. He was on 30th Street. He was right down the block from where Good Hands is now, ironically. But he used to be on 46th Street. Barry, Drummer's World, Barry Greenspan was on 46th Street. So there were still 2 drum shops. Pro Percussion was probably gone by that time. But anyway, I had a rehearsal studio where I had a room where I was teaching and I could practice. This is when I was still doing a lot of Broadway. So I really needed a place to go in between shows and a place to shed. And then I started teaching a little bit. So when that closed, I'm looking around for a new studio, a place I could rent. And someone told me about this new drum shop that was opening, this guy from Chicago. And when you talk to Joe Cusatis and Barry about this, who is going to open a new drum shop here in, whatever year this was? This is the post 2000. Yeah, we're in the mid 2005, maybe, whatever, around that time. Who is going to open a drum shop in New York in this day and age? Yeah. And that was Steve Maxwell, who was subletting from another vintage collector and of guitar shop and an amp shop, Rudy's. It's a fairly famous, well-known place. Had a bunch of places. So he had a guitar shop and an amp shop on 48th Street, and he was giving up this space, which is in an old recording studio, Quad Recording on 7th Avenue. And so that's how Steve came to New York. So what a place to open a drum shop in a recording studio. So every drum sounded fantastic because it was
yeah.
all wood, and yet we had private soundproof booths, which is where the drums were, or for vocals. Became perfect rooms to try out drums and cymbals.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a little closet in the back because I said, I'm looking for a studio. Do you have any, do you have any space? And they said, well, as a matter of fact, we do. We haven't decided what we're going to do with it yet because, again, the shop was brand new. You couldn't even find it. It wasn't advertised well, Jess was the only employee. And so it literally started like that. So I stumbled into something at the right time, with the right resume, and everything sort of worked. So it's I've been there ever since.
Oh, that's awesome. And you mentioned playing on Broadway, so we have to touch on that a little bit. You were the first touring drummer with Cats. Is that right?
Correct. So a lot of drummers coming up now are really studying to go to Broadway.
Yeah,
it's a
right.
lucrative gig. It's a great gig. Back then, it didn't have that kind of reputation. As a matter of fact, I think the first show I played was Barnum in 1980. It paid less than a club date at the time. So I'm asking the drummer, John Redsecker, who was the drummer on that show, how do you do this night after night? Which is the question everyone always asks if they don't play Broadway. How can you do that over and over and over again? So I hadn't developed those kinds of chops yet to that wasn't in my head.
Uh-huh.
But again, I could follow a conductor. I could read. I enjoyed versatility. And so subbing at Barnum led to subbing at various shows, meeting the other drummers that are doing shows, and that's how you always do it. So one drummer who called me was Paul Pizzuti, who was doing Cats, and it had just opened, so I was one of the first subs that came in. And usually a Broadway show, once it opens, if it's a hit, they start to mount a touring company.
Yeah.
So they can use members from the original or not, and then musicians, they'll hire subs from the show, blah, 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 put a band together, and then out they go. So I did that for about a year and a half, came back to New York, was subbing on the show again, and then after 9 years, Paul had just had enough. He thought, okay, it can't go on much longer. How long can this go? And so he left the show, and then I did it, and it ran for 11 more years.
Oh, my gosh. That's amazing.
I always I always joke with people. I say, well, I only did it for the last 11 years. And so it ran for a total of 18 years. So.
Oh, that's amazing. And that must have given you some stability, yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yes,
right. And
yes.
start a family and the whole deal, huh?
The timing was perfect. I got the Broadway gig, 2 months before my son was born.
Oh, wow.
We got a nice apartment that we could now afford to pay for. And I was like a regular day job. I would go, my wife was a nurse. She'd work during the day. She'd come home. We'd have dinner. I would go, pass off my son to my wife, and then I would go to the gig and come home at 11 o'clock. So it worked perfectly. And so from that point, it ran 11 years. So throughout my son's school, I had a regular job, and then by the time he went to college, I was freelancing again, and now that seems like 100 years ago,
Yeah.
but it's all part of the background.
Oh, that's fantastic. And again, I'll refer people to go check out your interview on the Broadway Drumming 101 podcast, because you go into depth about a lot of this stuff, and it's really great.
Cool.
And
Yep.
I seem to remember hearing you talk about doing duets or writing duets with a drum machine.
Yeah, I did that. Actually, I did that when I was on the road with Cats. I was seeing the coming of the digital age, and the Lindrum was out, and there was a drum machine. I was using for that duet. I think that was a DMX, which is made by Oberheim, and I was going to be in Boston. I was playing with everybody in the Boston pit of Cats were teachers at Berkeley and New England Conservatory and whatnot.
Oh,
so
sure.
They invited me to do a master class at Berkeley, and I had the drum machine, and I thought, because I was thinking about what am I going to do after the show? I got to go back and deal with facing this, because it was really killing the recording industry, and that's really what I came to New York to do. So I thought someone had recommended, well, why don't you get a drum machine and program it yourself? And I said, well, good idea. So that was an idea. The duet play along was just an idea because everything was so new, at that point.
Right.
But as a drummer, I'll play with it, so I can tell it what to do, and then I can structure my own part. So I wrote a duet, and I made copies of the charts for all the students that came to it.
Oh, cool.
And that was basically Well, it was not a one-off event because I did it. The show went to Philly, and I did it at the College of Arts there, and I may have done it at one or two other places as well. So that was very brief. That was short-lived because things were moving so quickly.
Yeah.
And by the time I got back to New York, that drum machine was dead. The Linn drum, I bought a Linn drum. I never even paid it off before that became obsolete.
Oh, wow.
And then all the keyboard players were really jumping into that technology and making a living with it. And so I felt, well, I've dipped my toes into Broadway, and now I'm fairly established there. It's still live. So I guess I'll take that fork in the road and go that way. And that's what happened.
Did you end up getting into dealing with electronics later, or any of your Broadway work since then where you have to run Ableton or things off of a laptop?
I haven't done anything with Ableton. It would mostly be triggering tracks.
Oh, sure.
Or triggering the click, obviously.
Yes.
And then sometimes extra sound. So instead of using live percussion, you could use a Octapad or one of those pads to trigger things. So that was about it for me. I mean, now it's getting heavy, so
yes.
I haven't entered that realm, but you're certainly there, and I think every drummer should learn it and be ready for it.
Oh, I agree. That early era with drum machines was so fun.
Right.
And, I'm a computer nerd by day now, and I really feel like that time learning how the drum machines work and figuring out the manuals, and there was such an aspect of troubleshooting that you just kind of had to do on your own with those things that I feel like it really set me up for my my life as a nerd.
Again, I think it suits the drummer's brain too, or the musician's brain in general.
Right.
I'm trying to avoid it just because at my age of life, I have enough trouble with software on my computer and the phone and the internet and everything. It's like, in my TV, I still don't know how to turn the TV off. It keeps going back on by itself. So I'm trying to avoid it just because I don't need to do it at this stage in life.
I get it.
And I want to stay in my strong lane.
Yeah, right. Well, let's jump into the books. I want to talk about your books now. I mean, that's the first reason I was interested in meeting you, but this has been awesome. It's been more than I could have hoped for already. But your books.
Okay.
So Hank told me about the Melodic Snare Drummer book that you put out, that Billy Drummond, and so I asked Billy Drummond about this a few weeks ago, and he told me that he started using it as a teaching tool even before it was officially a book. He had some pages from it. And what's so interesting about this book, so much of us spend time playing on a pad and reading snare drum solos. And then, of course, maybe you'll put on a record and play on the pad and work on rudiments along to a record. But this was at least the first time I heard of anybody writing snare drum solos to music. And I just thought it was such a fascinating way to connect the hands to music in a way where that connection isn't always as immediate. And I'm just wondering if you can tell me about the concept for the book, your experiments with it, why you chose the music that you did to write the solos to, all of that.
So I can tie some of this to what I've already been telling you about my background, and that I had a terrific teacher who was influencing me a lot. And when I first came to New York, again, being a young drummer on his own for the first time, not knowing anybody, I felt I got to practice. I got to be playing all the time. But I'm also in a small New York City apartment, so I'm always on a pad.
Yeah.
In 1976, this Breezin' album came out, George Benson, which I loved. And again, I'm all vinyl. I'm playing that record all the time. And I also have my drum pad handy. So I start, I'm memorizing the melodies. I'm I'm just singing along, and I start playing to it. And then I'm noticing the rhythmic accuracy of his playing when it came to the guitar lines.
Yeah.
And again, because it's pop oriented, it is very rhythmical, and everything is very lined up, and the improvisations, they're playing off each other, but everything, you can just count where everything is landing, and it fits, as opposed to a free jazz or a looser situation, which wouldn't fit the structure.
Right.
And certainly vocal tunes don't either, because then there's back phrasing and whatnot with vocals. So that would be harder. But this was so melodic, it was so groove oriented, And yet when it got to the solos, it's playing really interesting lines. So that's where it started. And again, it was not a book. It was me writing stuff, practicing my rhythmic transcription to have fun while I'm waiting for the phone to ring, because there's no cell phones.
Yeah.
I think I had finally gotten an answering machine, which is still relatively new at that time.
Right.
And I had joined an answering service that was catering to all the musicians for recording. So if you're not available when they call you, you could lose out on an important date. So I figured I got to stay close to the phone, but I want to be practicing. So I literally wrote them as an exercise for myself to just experience this, immersion in the music.
And when you were writing them, were you thinking about, well, I really want to work on this concept or this type of phrasing, so I'm going to write this solo to work on, I don't know, let's say paradiddles or...
Okay, so paradiddles is a good example because it's 16th note based. And if I hear a line that is just 16th notes, I'll stick it so it's a paradiddle phrasing. And then if there's some accents in it, and there are a lot of accents that I really jumped on, and I did this in all these books I've written, is I'm really emphasizing the syncopation of an accent and putting it on top of a paradiddle. So now that might permutate your paradiddle, so you're combining singles with the diddle in the middle and to fit the accent pattern.
Yeah.
And that's how I made it sort of interesting to play along, because if you're just playing the verse and the melody is just a simple line with a whole note or simple notes that don't require rhythmic accompaniment, I am creating a rhythmic bass on the snare drum that plays along. So, and you sense that, right, when you play with the first solo, it's usually, that's a lot of the foundation. Then you get to the solos, and I would base the lick on how could I voice that? How could I make that guitar lick? Or if he does a little tweak he does like a 2-note thing, that's a good opportunity to put a flam in there or drag or whatnot.
Yeah.
Long sounds where I would incorporate a roll as opposed to just tying over a note.
Right.
So it would put 5-stroke rolls. I even put this in the book at this one spot because in a rudimental book, I'd never played a 5-stroke roll that went over the bar line. It comes on the and goes to the E. So I made a note about that because this is a little unusual, but the music called for it. So that's where it took it away from just being rudimental exercises to making it musical, and it'll make you play things you wouldn't in a normal cadence. So let me get to the book part, because it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a book yet, but I would take these back to Tony Montfort in Binghamton, and I would play these for him, and he says, I just love this. So he put his stamp on it, and he would give it to his students who, and now every time I would come back, I'd bring a new chart. So I did almost the whole record, and then I started doing a couple of the other Benson records. And before you know it, some of his students are calling me, and they say, I love this chart you did, such and such, blah, blah, blah. Then just 10 years ago, or just before I had the book published, a young drummer that studied with Billy Drummond came into the drum shop, and he goes, Did you write these solos? He says, I did this for my jury with Billy Drummond at Juilliard. And I said, and I had no idea. So he shows me the copy that he's given, which was a Xerox of 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 my original handwritten chart that my teacher had put his rubber stamp on it, because he did that on all his stuff, And that's how the music started spreading around to music schools and other people. And I had, when I originally thought about, someone said you should turn this into a book. I thought, how would I do that from the licensing standpoint? Because everything comes with a CD at that time. Now it's all online. But you'd have to get the rights from the artists and the publishers, so it's going to be a mess. So it just sat in the drawer for 20 years until a friend of mine, Jerry Califf, who's a great drummer in LA, took it to the Pro Drum Shop, which is Tri Publishing in LA. They're still there. Talk about museum and classic old places. You gotta go there if you've never been, because that's one of the last originals from way back. Anyway, they have a great publishing, drum book publishing library, just great stuff that I grew up with. And so I was honored when they said, Well, if it's an original solo, call it a solo. Don't call it the name of the song.
Right.
And that it plays along with that recording.
Yes.
So now you're writing something original, but you're not stealing the record, and they have to go out and get the record themselves, or the download or whatnot.
Yeah.
And so that encouraged me, and that's how we did it, and that's how I did these follow-up books, which are a little different, and we'll talk about those.
Yeah, we'll get to those in a minute, but
Cool.
That's so fantastic. I love that you followed through with getting this out as a book. It's just so awesome. And
Thank you. Thanks.
What you were talking about stickings and being sort of specific about stickings. However, not all of the solos, and I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, between the Melodic Snare Drummer book and then the two new books, most of the solos don't have stickings written out.
Right.
A couple do. So what is your thinking there? And did you do that on purpose because it's maybe beneficial to kind of figure out your own thing?
Right. So a combination of things. Because originally when I did them, I didn't write the stickings for myself, and except for an occasional thing where I wanted something specific. And because I was able to play it naturally the way I wrote it. So I didn't need the sticking. My hands knew the sticking I wanted to play.
Yeah.
When it came to publishing it, everyone said, no, you got to put stickings. It's really important. And the more I worked on it, the more I realized that, that's absolutely true. Because once you do these up to speed, you got to know whether you're going to play a right-hand flam or a left-hand flam, or you need to play a double stick or whatever the case. So I did it where absolutely necessary. And then when you don't see the sticking, it was because I thought the tempo isn't that fast where you can use your own, or if you use a different sticking in the way you were brought up, you might not like the sticking I have.
Yeah.
And also, if you're left-handed, if you lead with your left hand, you're definitely not going to like the sticking I have.
Right.
So I was very mixed in that, and but they really asked me to do sticking for most of the book, and how I got away with a few without sticking, I don't know, but I think they must have agreed. Yeah, I guess you don't need it for these or whatnot. And then in the newer books, which if we get into those specifically, I can go through that. But I make some suggestions on mainly how to play the rolls, because the newer ones are not rudimental. The rudimental ones, if there's a bunch of 16th notes, you should play diddles in there. Why not? Rather than just single stroke. And the accent pattern would determine what sticking I might use. And the flam, certainly. So you got to know which hand you're going to go to. If there's flam after flam and they're mixed with notes in between.
Right.
So I did give that a lot of thought. And there is some, like when to change a sticking, like when to go with, if you have like I always learned the proper sticking for 16th notes would be, if it's right, left, right, left, right, left, and you took out a note, you just take out that stick.
Right.
So if you take out the middle, the and of 4/16 notes, you would have played that right, left, left.
Yes.
So when there were cases where there were a whole bunch of those, I said, well, geez, why? I guess we don't need to go right, left, 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 left. You could start to alternate as long as you come back to the left right before your downbeat of the next, of the end of the phrase, because right-handers, we want to start things on our right hand usually.
Yeah.
So there were exceptions to the rule that I tried to explain in the book a little bit. And so now I don't explain it at all, other than the types of rolls and things, because that's another question is, when did you play a press roll or when would you play open roll? So the melodic snare drummer is more rudimental in that sense that you can play definitely open rolls.
Yeah.
And maybe when they're faster, like near the end of the book, you might press some of those because they sound a little bit better.
Right.
And they're easier to play at a fast tempo.
Yeah, one thing that I really like about most of the solos is that there are chunks of repetition, during verses, and it's really fun. And then, some, like I said, some have stickings and some don't. But what I started noticing as I was trying to work some of them up is that I would then start playing around with the stickings on those repeated patterns and finding ones that were either more comfortable or did something kind of cool with just subtle accents or grace notes or something like that. And I found that really fun.
Absolutely.
There's like a sense of discovery,
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, because once you put a sticking down, you're doing exactly what the author is saying.
Right.
And there's room, it does take away some of the creativity because it's one more thing you have to look at. You know what I mean? So if you can avoid some of that, it becomes a little more musical. And even you said the weight of your right stick versus your left might put a natural accent in certain spots, and it frees you up to do some different things.
Yeah. And there's at least one of the solos in that first book that has a suggested bass drum and hi-hat pattern.
Yes.
To play along with it, right? And as simple as that ostinato is, it's challenging.
Soulful strut. Yes, exactly.
And it was challenging, and it was really fun to work up. I didn't work up the whole thing, but I sat down with that for about a half hour one day as I was thinking about getting ready for this interview, and it was a lot of fun.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
And then I was really excited to hear that you have new books out. And let's see, what do we have here? We have Swingin' Snare Drummer, which, based on my memory, it's a lot of the old swing tunes. And then the hip hop snare drummer, which is awesome because, I grew up in the 80s and was a big hip hop fan in the 80s and 90s. So a lot of that was very nostalgic for me to go back. And you have some tunes I wouldn't have thought of, like I Wish by Skilo, which I love. I remember that during the MTV era. That was a huge video.
Right.
So can you talk about the new books and anything you want to say about them separately? Or?
Okay. Well, first of all, I did the intensive work on that during the pandemic because I'm shut down.
Yeah,
I'm blocked
sense.
in. I'm going to get back into writing. I've always thought about this, but I never found the right tunes because I thought originally of doing a second melodic snare drummer, which I sort of did, but it hasn't come out yet. And I'm realizing, no, I don't want to, it's not necessary. I want to go in a different direction like this. So these books, again, like they have no stickings, and these play along more with the melody, and in the case of the hip hop, with the vocal or the rapper,
right?
Because it's so rhythmic. So now the idea of this book is to when someone speaks and they accent their voice like we always do, how is that going to be written out? How can I simulate that on a snare drum to add that emphasis? And again, I had to pick tunes that the rappers are accurate in their rhythms.
Yes.
So like one is an Eminem tune, "Lose Yourself,"
right?
And at the beginning, he's swerving around the beat a little bit. So it was a little harder to come up with a line that didn't sound goofy and unpronounced. But boy, when that tune gets rolling, it is just you feel like you're singing the tune again, or rapping the tune at the same time. So again, finding those tunes that fit that, and the Skilo tune was one, and some of those I just found I'd hear it on the street or something, and I love the fact that I always have my Shazam ready at any time to check something out because I would recognize the thing I was looking for.
Right.
So that's what that's about. So again, the rudimental aspect is different. And the fact that this time you'll find that you're playing more with everything you're hearing. I'm not creating a rhythmic pad underneath it like the melodic snare drum. So it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And there's very few rudimental ornamentations. So you can play those. As open rolls or closed based on the sound, but the dynamics are what's the most important thing in the hip hop one, especially. A lot of accents. And I really fine-tuned that to accentuate any little rhythmic burst that's in the voice.
Have you ever played around with orchestrating some of these on the drum set with students or just for fun with yourself?
Well, what again, you got to be a good reader to do these. And I introduce them to students who have done rudimental books. And then I'll say, okay, now we're going to start on this. But I rarely have worked with a student who could literally sort of read these well enough to say, okay, now let's move these around the drums and let's do the feet. Definitely the feet, though. And the feet, as I experimented with when I suggested that for Soulful Strut, the feet really work well on the hip-hop book, and they work well on the swinging snare drummer. And without reading the line, in other words, to me, if you got to think of what you're going to play with your feet, it's going to complicate it too much and make it too difficult.
Right.
But in the hip hop snare drummer, you can keep the groove that is in the track.
Yeah.
So like California Love if you just played, and you play bass drum and hi-hat because your hands are busy. So if you just played boom, da, boom, boom, da, boom, da, and read on top of it, your feet will stick with that ostinato and you'll be fine. You get used to it. So find an ostinato that works and just put the feet on. The one of the slower ones that I wrote in cut time in the hip hop is Alexander Hamilton from the show Hamilton. And so that's very slow and languid and everything. So again, there's a lot of finger snaps on the backbeat, and you just put your hi-hat in there. It's perfect. So it plays pretty straight. The swing and snare drummer is more, if it's in a fast 4, just play a fast 4, you know, because that's what they did. That's what they did in that period. Yeah. So the swing and snare drummer, which is more recent, that's the one I just finished. It's all Benny Goodman from a certain era. And I did this in the pandemic, and I did it before I thought about, can you find these songs easily if anyone's going to play along with them? And unfortunately, some of the tunes I picked, which were perfect, they were too hard to find. So I had to find some other ones. But I was really most interested in Benny Goodman with the Red Norvo duo albums. They did a few albums because the vibes and clarinet playing these syncopated licks, it was so cool and gave you a chance to experience that. And yet you're playing a fast swing tune. There was a lot of fun. They're a lot of fun to play. And not, even though the tempos are fast, the reading is not crazy because, again, it's not, there aren't a lot of flams and stickings to bog you down. Yeah. You're just swinging like they are, you know? Yeah. So very cool.
Is this something that you're going to keep going on? Do you have other ideas for books?
Probably not. Probably not, unless something hits me that I'm thinking, okay, this is an area to do it. But I wanted to touch on these styles because I hadn't done it before, and yet I felt these certain songs at least worked. And it's not like creating a catalog of doing this. This was more an idea for someone that wants to experience. First of all, if you do the swing book, you're going to be reading in cut time, and you're playing along with these old tracks that you'll never listen to. Yeah, unless you're in a trad band or something, you know what I mean? Right. And you'll certainly never be playing a clarinet solo. So it gives you a really insight into what they were doing in that era. So that's sort of why I like doing that. And the same thing with the hip hop thing. The hip hop phenomena took from the drummers. They took our gig. So I'm taking it back. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so cool. I just, when I heard about your book and then now the new ones, I was just so blown away, and it just made me giddy, like I was a kid again, discovering a fun book, you know?
Cool.
Just so Thank cool. You. So where can people get these books?
Okay, so Melodic Snare Drummer is still well distributed. Amazon, any of the big drum shops, Steve Weiss. And then the new ones, I haven't really gotten them out there yet, and I'm self-publishing them, so it's you got to contact the Good Hands Drum Shop. Okay. And I will have those posted up there, or you can just contact me directly. A lot of people ask me about PDFs, and I think I can do that. I just haven't set up how to do that because everyone's using an iPad now. So, but I will say that using Spiral for books now is so much easier.
It is.
As far as page turns, you know, because that was a problem with the Melodic Snare Drummer, and we discussed how to do that. So what I even suggest to people that have the Melodic Snare Drummer, as opposed to making a copy of a page and making it a fold out so you don't have to a page turn on a crazy section, is to have your book spiraled. You just take it down to a Staples or whatever, and it's very inexpensive to just have them spiral it. And again, the page turns become much easier.
Oh, yeah. And I still prefer physical books. You know, I have iPads, and I do some work out of books on the iPad, but there's just something literally is more organic about a paper book, and I'm spending all my day on the screen anyway. I don't need iPad in my face while I'm practicing.
I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
Well, I think we can start winding down here. It's been so awesome talking to you, but before we leave, there's a question I'm asking everybody lately, and I'm curious what album you've listened to more than any other in your life. And, you know, 1 or 2 is fine, and it doesn't have to be cool. It doesn't have to be jazz. Just, you know, what do you have?
I like the way you're asking that question because we're talking drums and drumming and everything, and I'm thinking of drum albums, but I don't always listen to drum albums, and I'm sure you don't either.
Right.
And I would say when I look back at like, what do I always go back to, or what do I still like listening to? Because I think that's the real tell of a great recording. Does it still sound good 20 years later? Because things get dated, recording technology changes,
right.
or the playing, you're not interested in that anymore. So a record that I heard by a group was just, they never got as big as they should have, is by the Sons of Champlin. And it's called a song or an album called Follow Your Heart.
Oh, wow. I've never even heard of that.
Never even heard of them. Most people haven't. So I don't know how someone turned me on to it, but they were not an AM radio kind of play. They were an album-based group. They came out of the Fillmore West, San Francisco Bay Area scene.
Okay. So was this a 70s band or?
Yes. Early 70s.
Okay.
Early 70s. So they, I guess people would, you'd call them a jam band nowadays. You know what I mean? And you might relate them to Grateful Dead or Fish or something like that. But they were the most progressive band for, I think this album was their third album, and it came out in, I believe, 1970. So again, it's called Follow Your Heart. Here's the instrumentation. So rock-based band, so rock drums and everything. But the singer-songwriter is Bill Champlin. Interesting name that they call it the Sons of Champlin. They're not his sons.
Right.
And, I don't know how big his ego was, but anyway. So then they shortened it to the Sons. But the Sons of Champlin, the instrumentation was Hammond organ, vibes, three-piece horn section, a solo guitarist, like a guy with a big hollow body, just a jazz-influenced. He was their solo guitar guy. Bill was more of a rhythm player, a good bass player. Vocals were okay, but Bill was a great songwriter. And the band just cooked, and it cooked in 1970 when you didn't cook that way. And yet the tunes are good. Yeah. So if you listen to it, recording-wise, you might say it's a little dated, it's a little sloppy. But boy, what they were doing, again, when you say that's 1970, was very progressive and very under-recognized.
Did you ever see them live?
Yes. As a matter of fact, sort of late. They came to my father's place in Roslyn, Long Island. I think that's a showcase club that might even still be there, but it was a big room. He'd never come to the East Coast, or very rarely, so it was so cool to get to see him. And they were friends with a guitar player named Barry Finnerty, who was a jazz guy that he played with the Brecker Brothers. He had moved to New York. I guess he was from San Francisco. So he sat in with them. Oh, cool. So it was that kind of a loose enough situation that they always attracted the best musicians, and it was just that's my all-time favorite, I think, as far as a listening record that I still listen to.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm going to definitely check that out. And I guess now this makes me think of one more thing I want to ask you about, since you were in New York during so much of the 70s and 80s. Are there any live shows that you saw that are standout, sort of like Mount Rushmore concerts in your lifetime, whether it's small clubs or stadium acts?
Yeah, I didn't go. I never went to big stadium shows. Still haven't. Yeah, I never did. And it would require, hustling to get the ticket and then making sure I wasn't. And I had to be open to work. You know what I mean? It was like, I'm about gigging. So, when you're gigging, so when an opportunity comes up, or someone and you get invited, you'd go to a show. So I'm not good at saying that I saw great people. And yet, you asked me earlier, oh yeah, I saw him here, I saw him here. So over a lifetime, those are very memorable to me. But I'd say the person or band I would go back to see on a regular basis would have been Buddy's band, because he was just so much on the road, and it wasn't an expensive ticket, and I knew I was going to be blown away. So because you cannot. And they always, you probably heard that, they said when Buddy dies, there's never going to be another one. And there really hasn't. I mean, that is now a point in history of drumming that no one's recreating. And because it needs the music he serviced a certain kind of music. He was that fit. I wouldn't put him in a rock band. I didn't like him when he was doing, Mercy Mercy and, those kinds of things. So that was I felt like I was really seeing a piece of history with that. And I don't know. I mean, I saw seeing Billy Cobham on his first solo tour with the Brecker Brothers right after Mahavishnu.
Yeah.
I never saw Mahavishnu, but seeing Billy Cobham, and I remember I had a gig that night. I was in Washington, and I had a gig, and I could only stay for like a half an hour.
Okay.
And I said, I gotta see, even if it's for a half an hour. And it was just, that was so thrilling. Again, for that time, mid-70s, and woo.
Yeah, amazing. All right, Ron. Well, it's been awesome meeting you, and thanks for sharing so much. Congrats on the new books.
Thanks, Craig.
Again, I'll put links in the show notes and up on a blog post on my website so people can find you. And with that, I'll just thank you for your time, and we'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
It was great talking with you, and I hope to see you again. Come and see me when you come into the shop.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
I'll hit you up the next time I come through New York.
Cool. Great. Thank you very much, Craig.
All right. Thanks, Ron. Thanks for listening. If you like the show, please subscribe on your platform of choice and share it with a friend. You can find the show at practicingdrummer.com or on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram as Practicing Drummer.